Want to understand why you're clingy and how you can overcome it by understanding your attachment style? Then definitely watch this video. Hey guys, it's Katya, Morozova, dating and relationship coach for men who are ready to attract an amazing woman into their life and have a meaningful connection. If you're new to my channel and you want to get reminders every week of when I drop a video showing you how to be comfortable and secure in your skin so that you can attract a better partner, then definitely hit the subscribe button. In this video, I'm going to define the anxious attachment style and help you understand it so that you can understand why you're clingy and how you can start moving from clingy to confident. All right, let's get started and jump right into the steps. First, I want to help you understand what is adult attachment theory, where it comes from, and how it impacts you and your relationships. So, attachment theory was birthed by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth in the 1950s. John Bowlby wanted to measure the distress level of babies whenever they were separated from their mother. They did an experiment where a mother would be with her child and then she would leave the room and then she would come back. The study would measure the distress level of the child upon the mother's return. And what he noticed was that different babies responded in different ways when the mother came back. That even though the mother came back and would provide the baby with the emotional needs that it had, that many of the babies had distress, a prolonged level of distress, way beyond the time frame that after the mother returned. John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth started to categorize these different responses that the babies had into different attachment styles. And one of those styles is anxious attachment style. And the way that that was characterized in babies was that even when the mother returned, the baby would have a really heightened distress level, and it would take a long time for the baby to calm down. Out of these studies developed adult attachment theory. And in adult attachment theory, it is theorized that the type of nourishment that you receive as a baby and as a child, the extent to which your emotional needs are met as a baby and as a child impacts you and molds you and creates who you are as an adult. And those relational patterns that you experienced as a baby and a child live on with you into adulthood. Now let's talk about anxious attachment style. Anxious attachment style comes from not having your needs met as a baby or as a child. This could range from not having your emotional needs met, as well as sometimes your physiological needs. What usually happened as a child or as a baby is that your needs were met inconsistently, or you had to perform to get your needs met, or instead of being soothed like babies and children are supposed to, you had to soothe your parent in order to get your needs met. Or your needs were punished or made wrong. Or there was an implicit communication that you shouldn't have needs. Let's talk about tip number one. Tip number one is understanding anxious attachment style. If you don't understand something, it's difficult to change it. If you understand why you're being clingy, if you understand what's underneath that behavior, then you start to gain the awareness and the possibility to change a behavior in your life. People who have anxious attachment style have a tendency to cling to people. The reason that they do this is because they have a deep-seated fear of loss. They fear that if they don't cling, if they don't immediately attach to someone, that person will go away and will be lost. What's interesting about that is that this actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. As you know, when you are clingy, if you have been clingy in the past, it often alienates people from you. The very thing that you're afraid of is the thing that's already happening. Anxious attachment style people also have a tendency to attract avoidant partners. They attract attract avoidant partners not because they want to, it's because it's unconscious. It's because on some level that unavailability, this person who's not really there for them, feels really familiar. It's very familiar to something that they experienced as a child, just like we talked about earlier in this video. So there's a familiarity to this person isn't really available to me. Anxious attachment style partners have a hard time connecting to secure partners, people who are ready and available, because it feels so different. It feels so foreign that someone would be there for them and be there for their needs. In fact, anxious attachment style folks, when presented with a choice, when presented with people who care about their needs, who are actually available to meet their needs, is often very frightening because it forces that anxious attachment style person to actually connect to the fact that they might have needs and they might want something. And that is a very scary proposition for people with this attachment style, because for the longest time they were conditioned into thinking that their needs were bad or wrong, or that they were never going to be met. Anxious attachment style partners are also more prone to having pseudo relationships. So what I mean by pseudo relationships is on and off again relationships with people who aren't really there for them, or being attracted to a person who is your friend with the hope that it might turn into something later down the road. The reason that this happens is because anxious attachment style people often live in a fantasy, live in a romantic fantasy, and it's easier to live in that fantasy world than to actually come down into reality and have a real relationship in real life. Anxious attachment style folks also have a tendency to call and text too much. They have a tendency to over lean into the relationship, and we talked a little bit about why that is, because they're always afraid that that person will leave, and in a sense they're waiting for that other shoe to drop. They have a tendency to commit too quickly in relationships and give so much of themselves or expect so much in a relationship before they are actually ready and before the other person is ready. Do you identify with the anxious attachment style? If you do, what is one identifying feature that I listed that you identify with? Please let me know in the comments below. Okay, tip number 2 is identify your needs. So one of the best questions that you could ask yourself is, what is it that I need most right now? A lot of times anxious attachment style folks try to meet their needs by going outwards, because they think that if this person will communicate with them, if they'll go out with them, if they'll just give them what they need, that then they will have their needs met. While that is true, it is a very temporary solution, and an anxious attachment style person is usually looking for a way to actually soothe themselves through the outside world, when they really need to learn how to soothe themselves on their own and actually check in with what they need, so that when they can identify their needs, they can make a choice between, is this something that I really need to give myself? Is this something that I really need to learn how to develop within myself? Or is this truly something that I need from someone else? This is why clinginess is so prominent for people with the anxious attachment style. When anxious attachment style folks cling, or they call too much, or they need to spend so much time together, they think that this other person will actually fulfill their needs. And while they do that temporarily, it is like a bit of a dopamine hit to have that need met from outside. What really needs to happen is they need to start to identify the internal needs that they can meet on their own. How can you start to learn how to soothe yourself on your own? How can you start to learn how to give yourself affection and love? Step number 3 is validate your needs. So there is a lot of shame in our culture around being needy. Independence is highly, highly valued. Standing on your own 2 feet, being an independent man, not really needing someone. I also think there's this really strange double standard around what is valued in our culture is as attractive. So for instance, a woman who is unavailable, a woman who is aloof is often really prized in our culture. A man who is unavailable, a man who is aloof, is often really shamed by women. At the same time, men notice that a lot of women are attracted to these unavailable men, these quote, these jerks. So it's very confusing, right? Neediness is shamed. Unavailability is also shamed by women, but all at the same time, it's rewarded because many women are attracted to these men who are unavailable. I just want to share this with you because I can understand if you're really confused about who you're supposed to be, confused about when you're supposed to have needs, when you're not supposed to have needs, how you're supposed to behave, and what it is that women really want from a man. I want you to know that if you've ever been needy or clingy, or if you've ever really kind of gone over trying to chase after a woman and trying to do everything that you can to get her or to get someone's love, that it is okay, and that it's often an unconscious pattern that's playing out underneath the surface. There is no shame in being needy. It is something that you can work on. It is something that you can heal within yourself, and it is nothing to be ashamed of. Let's talk about step number 4. So step number 4 is noticing the types of partners and the types of people that you attract into your life and how that perpetuates your anxious attachment style. Anxious attachment style people attract 3 different types of people to them, and they handle these relationships in different ways. 1, they attract unavailable partners. 2, they attract secure partners. And 3, they attract abusive partners. If you're attracting unavailable partners and this person is constantly never really around to give you attention, not really around to give you the love that you need, you may start to assume that no one really wants you, that you are simply unattractive to women. If you're with an unavailable person, you might actually feel like you're going crazy because this person is so aloof and so unavailable to you. What happens is this loop that you attract an unavailable person, you think that that's what you deserve, it feels very familiar, and you end up pointing the finger back at you, saying that there's something wrong with you, that, that this is kind of all you can get, this is all you deserve. The next type of person that you attract is a secure person. Anxious attachment style partners will often sabotage their relationships with secure people. They're there, they're here for you, they're calm, they're soothing, they're really easy to be with. And for an anxious attachment style who is not used to these types of partners, it can be extremely nerve-wracking. So what they do sometimes is they truly love bomb or create unnecessary conflict in their relationships with a secure partner. And because a secure partner is secure and has really high standards, the secure partner will often realize that they deserve something more, that they want a partner who can be also secure in the relationship, and so they'll leave. Or the anxious attachment style will sabotage the relationship and leave themselves. The third type of relationship is abusive relationships, whether that's physically abusive or emotionally abusive. The problem with this relationship is that anxious attachment style people tend to stay in these relationships for too long. They feel like this is something that they deserve. It does feel in some ways a little bit better than being with an avoidant person because that person is actually there. Even though they're abusing them or possibly gaslighting them or emotionally abusing them, they are there, and so it feels like a form of love. Also, those abusive partners can often feed into the anxious attachment style, which sometimes confuses conflict for connection. Then what happens in these relationships is by the time that it ends, it has really destroyed self-esteem, and their relationship to themselves and their worthiness really plummets. You may walk away from these relationships believing that there's something wrong with you, but if you simply focused on the idea that it's not a you problem, it's a relational problem, and it's something that you can work on, then you can start to see that the patterns that you've had in your relationships is something that can be healed and that you can have the secure relationship that you want. If you're ready to start transforming your attachment style from one of anxiousness into one of security and really start your journey to help you attract an amazing secure partner in your life, I am currently booking one-on-one sessions, and you can find a link to book one of my sessions in the comments below. Did you like this video? If you did, go ahead and hit the like button below. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel and you want to see more videos with real advice on how you can attract a healthy partner into your life, then definitely hit the subscribe button. Now, if you want to watch more videos on how you can grow to be a secure and confident man and attract a classy woman into your life, then watch these videos next. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.